ship would slow down, silent and lifeless, to exhaust its last heat into the eternal timelessness of outer space. Or perhaps it would crash on some barren asteroid, burst into a million fragments. It was only a question of time. "Your wife didn't remember anything?" Gross said. "I told you only that he kept a goat once." "A hell of a lot of help that is." Kramer shrugged. "It's not my fault." "I wonder if we'll ever see him again." Gross stared down at the indicator dot still hanging at the edge of the board. "I wonder if he'll ever move back this way." "I wonder, too," Kramer said. That night, Kramer lay in bed, tossing from side to side, unable to sleep. The moon gravity, even artificially increased, was unfamiliar to him, and it made him uncomfortable. 1,000 thoughts wandered loose in his head as he lay, fully awake. What did it all mean? What was the professor's plan? Maybe they would never know. Maybe the ship was gone for good. The old man had left forever, shooting into outer space. They might never find out why he had done it, what purpose, if any, had been in his mind. Kramer sat up in bed. He turned on the light and lit a cigarette. His quarters were small, a metal-lined bunk room, part of the moon station base. The old man had wanted to talk to him. He had wanted to discuss things, hold a conversation. But in the hysteria and confusion, all they had been able to think of was getting away. The ship was rushing off with them, carrying them into outer space. Kramer set his jaw. Could they be blamed for jumping? They had no idea where they were being taken or why. They were helpless, caught in their own ship, and the pursuit ship standing by, waiting to pick them up, was their only chance. Another half hour and it would have been too late. But what had the old man wanted to say? What had he intended to tell him in those first confusing moments when the ship around them had come alive, each metal strut and wire suddenly animate, the body of a living creature, a vast metal organism? It was weird, unnerving. He could not forget it, even now. He looked around the small room uneasily. What did it signify, the coming to life of metal and plastic? All at once they had found themselves inside a living creature, in its stomach, like Jonah inside the whale. It had been alive, and it had talked to them, talked calmly and rationally as it rushed them off, faster and faster into outer space. The wall speaker and circuit had become the vocal cords and mouth, the wiring, the spinal cord and nerves, the hatches and relays and circuit breakers, the muscles. They had been helpless, completely helpless. The ship had, in a brief second, stolen their power away from them and left them defenseless, practically at its mercy. It was not right. It made him uneasy. All his life he had controlled machines, bent nature and the forces of nature to man and man's needs. The human race had slowly evolved until it was in a position to operate things, run them as it saw fit. Now, all at once, it had been plunged back down the ladder again, prostrate before a power against which they were children. Kramer got out of bed. He put on his bathrobe and began to search for a cigarette. While he was searching, the vidphone rang. He snapped the vidphone on. "Yes?" The face of an immediate monitor appeared. "A call from Terra, Mr. Kramer. It's an emergency call." "Emergency call? For me? Put it through." Kramer came awake, brushing his hair back out of his eyes. Alarm plucked at him. From the speaker a strange voice came. "Philip Kramer? Is this Philip Kramer?" "Yes. Go on." "This is General Hospital, New York City, Terra. Mr. Kramer, your wife is here. She has been critically injured in an accident. Your name was given to us to call. Is it possible for you to—" "How badly?" Kramer gripped the vidphone stand. "Is it serious?" "Yes, it's serious, Mr. Kramer. Are you able to come here? The quicker you can come, the better." "Yes," Kramer nodded. "I'll come. Thanks." The screen died as the connection was broken. Kramer waited a moment, then he tapped the button. The screen relit again. "Yes, sir?" the monitor said. "Can I get a ship to Terra at once? It's an emergency. My wife—" "There's no ship leaving the moon for 8 hours. You'll have to wait until the next period." "Isn't there anything I can do?" "We can broadcast a general request to all ships passing through this area. Sometimes cruisers pass by here returning to Terra for repairs." "Will you broadcast that for me? I'll come down to the field." "Yes, sir. But there may be no ship in the area for a while. It's a gamble." The screen died. Kramer dressed quickly. He put on his coat and hurried to the lift. A moment later he was running across the general receiving lobby, past the rows of vacant desks and conference tables. At the door the sentry stepped aside and he went outside onto the great concrete steps. The face of the moon was in shadow. Below him the field stretched out in total darkness, a black void, endless, without form. He made his way carefully down the steps and along the ramp along the side of the field to the control tower. A faint row of red lights showed him the way. Two soldiers challenged him at the foot of the tower, standing in the shadows, their guns ready. "Kramer?" "Yes." A light was flashed in his face. "Your call has been sent out already." "Any luck?" Kramer asked. "There's a cruiser nearby that has made contact with us. It has an injured jet and is moving slowly back toward Terra, away from the line." "Good." Kramer nodded, a flood of relief rushing through him. He lit a cigarette and gave one to each of the soldiers. The soldiers lit up. "Sir?" one of them asked. "Is it true about the experimental ship?" "What do you mean?" "It came to life and ran off?" "No, not exactly," Kramer said. "It had a new type of control system instead of the Johnson units. It wasn't properly tested." "But, sir, one of the cruisers that was there got up close to it, and a buddy of mine says this ship acted funny. He never saw anything like it. It was like when he was fishing once on Terra, in Washington State, fishing for bass. The fish were smart, going this way and that." "Here's your cruiser," the other soldier said. "Look." An enormous vague shape was setting slowly down onto the field. They could make nothing out but its row of tiny green blinkers. Kramer stared at the shape. "Better hurry, sir," the soldier said. "They don't stick around here very long." "Thanks." Kramer loped across the field toward the black shape that rose up above him, extended across the width of the field. The ramp was down from the side of the cruiser and he caught hold of it. The ramp rose and a moment later Kramer was inside the hold of the ship. The hatch slid shut behind him. As he made his way up the stairs to the main deck, the turbines roared up from the moon, out into space. Kramer opened the door to the main deck. He stopped suddenly, staring around him in surprise. There was nobody in sight. The ship was deserted. "Good God," he said, realization sweeping over him, numbing him. He sat down on a bench, his head swimming. "Good God." The ship roared out into space, leaving the moon and Terra farther behind each moment. And there was nothing he could do. "So it was you who put the call through," he said at last. "It was you who called me on the vidphone, not any hospital on Terra. It was all part of the plan." He looked up and around him. "And Dolores is really—" "Your wife is fine," the wall speaker above him said tonelessly. "It was a fraud. I am sorry to trick you that way, Philip, but it was all I could think of. Another day and you would have been back on Terra. I don't want to remain in this area any longer than necessary. They have been so certain of finding me out in deep space that I have been able to stay here without too much danger. But even the purloined letter was found eventually." Kramer smoked his cigarette nervously. "What are you going to do? Where are we going?" "First, I want to talk to you. I have many things to discuss. I was very disappointed when you left me, along with the others. I had hoped that you would remain." The dry voice chuckled. "Remember how we used to talk in the old days, you and I? That was a long time ago." The ship was gaining speed. It plunged through space at tremendous speed, rushing through the last of the defense zone and out beyond. A rush of nausea made Kramer bend over for a moment. When he straightened up, the voice from the wall went on. "I'm sorry to step it up so quickly, but we are still in danger. Another few moments and we'll be free." "How about yuk ships? Aren't they out there?" I've already slipped away from several of them. They're quite curious about me.